The autumn leaves were falling outside my kitchen window as I prepared dinner for what I thought would be a perfect evening. My husband Mark would be home from his business trip in an hour, and my sister Lisa had promised to stop by with her famous apple pie. After 3 years of marriage, I had grown to treasure these quiet moments when our small family came together. My name is Sarah, and at 29, I believed I had everything figured out. A loving husband who provided for us beautifully, a comfortable home in the suburbs, and a sister who had been my best friend since childhood. Mark worked in pharmaceutical sales, which required frequent travel, but the money was excellent and allowed me to work part-time at the local library while pursuing my master's degree in literature. Lisa, my older sister by 4 years, had always been my rock. When our parents died in a car accident 8 years ago, she had stepped into a maternal role, helping me navigate college, career choices, and eventually my relationship with Mark. She had been my maid of honor, and Mark often joked that he had married both of us since Lisa was at our house so frequently. Our house was a 2-story colonial that Mark had surprised me with after his promotion 2 years ago. The neighborhood was perfect for the family we planned to start someday, with tree-lined streets where children rode bicycles and neighbors knew each other by name. Mark's success at work meant increasingly frequent travel, but I supported his ambitions because I could see how passionate he was about his career. The early months of marriage had been blissful. We settled into comfortable routines, took vacations to places I had only dreamed of, and built a life that felt secure and happy. Lisa had been part of our relationship from the beginning, joining us for weekly dinners and holidays. The three of us had created a dynamic that felt natural and loving. When we first met 5 years ago at a friend's wedding, Mark had impressed me with his confidence and ambition. He was working for a smaller pharmaceutical company then, but he had big dreams about moving up in the industry. Our courtship had been a whirlwind of romantic dinners, weekend getaways, and long conversations about our hopes for the future. The proposal came during a vacation to Napa Valley 18 months after we met. Mark had planned everything perfectly, and when he dropped to one knee beside a fountain covered in climbing roses, I felt like I was living in a fairy tale. Our wedding had been everything I had dreamed of, with Lisa as my maid of honor helping me plan every detail. That October evening started like any other. I was marinating chicken for Mark's favorite dish, hoping to welcome him home properly after his week-long trip to Chicago. The house smelled of garlic and herbs, and I had opened a bottle of wine to let it breathe. Lisa was due to arrive any minute with dessert. The doorbell rang at exactly 6 o'clock, as Lisa was always punctual. I opened the door to find her standing there with a covered pie dish, but something was different about her expression. Usually, Lisa greeted me with a bright smile and immediate chatter about her day. Tonight, she looked serious, almost troubled. "Hey, everything okay?" I asked as I took the pie from her hands. "You look like someone stole your favorite parking spot." Lisa forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine, just tired. Long shift at the hospital." She followed me into the kitchen, where she usually made herself at home, but tonight she stood awkwardly by the counter. "Want some wine?" "I opened that bottle you brought us from Napa last month." I was already reaching for glasses. "Actually, Sarah, I think we need to talk." Lisa's voice had a quality I had never heard before, hesitant, almost fearful. "Before Mark gets home." I set down the wine glasses and turned to face her fully. In 33 years of knowing my sister, I had seen her handle medical emergencies and deal with our parents' death with remarkable strength. Whatever was making her nervous now had to be serious. "What's going on?" "You're scaring me a little." Lisa took a deep breath and sat down at the kitchen table. "Sarah, I need to tell you something, and I don't know how to say it without it sounding terrible. I've been debating whether to tell you for weeks, and I finally decided that you deserve to know the truth." My heart started beating faster. Lisa's tone was the same one she had used when she told me our father was in the ICU. Just tell me. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together like we always do. Lisa looked down at her hands, which were clasped tightly in her lap. It's about Mark. About your marriage. Sarah, I don't think Mark has been faithful to you. The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt the air leave my lungs, and for a moment, the kitchen seemed to tilt around me. What are you talking about? That's ridiculous. Mark loves me. We're happy. I know this is hard to hear, but please let me explain. Lisa's voice was gentle but determined. You know how I sometimes work evening shifts at the hospital downtown? Well, 3 weeks ago, I was leaving work around 11 at night, and I saw Mark coming out of the Hilton Hotel with a woman I didn't recognize. I shook my head vigorously. That doesn't mean anything. He probably had a work dinner or was meeting a client. You know how his job works. Sarah, they were holding hands. And when they got to the parking garage, he kissed her. Not a friendly kiss, not a professional kiss. He kissed her like he kisses you. The room felt like it was spinning. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. You must have been mistaken. It was dark, you were tired after a long shift. I thought the same thing, Lisa interrupted. That's why I didn't say anything immediately. I convinced myself I had seen wrong, that it was just someone who looked like Mark. But then it happened again. My mouth went dry. Again? Last week. I was having coffee with Jenny at that cafe on 5th Street, you know, the one near the hospital? It was around 2 in the afternoon on Thursday. Mark walked by with the same woman. They were laughing, and she had her arm through his. They looked like a couple. I felt nauseous. Thursday afternoon last week, Mark had told me he was in meetings all day, preparing for his Chicago trip. What did this woman look like? Lisa hesitated. Blonde, probably around our age, very well dressed. She was wearing expensive jewelry and carrying a designer purse. She looked like someone who works in a professional office environment. The description meant nothing to me, but somehow that made it worse. If Mark was having an affair, it was with a complete stranger. Sarah, there's more. Lisa's voice was barely above a whisper. More? How can there be more? I felt like I was drowning. After I saw them the second time, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I know I shouldn't have, but I drove by the office where his company leases space. His car wasn't there, even though he had told you he would be in the office all day. I stared at my sister. You followed him? Not exactly. I just needed to know if I was imagining things. Sarah, I've been losing sleep over this. You're my little sister, and I've watched you build this life with Mark. I've seen how happy you are, how much you love him. The last thing I want is to hurt you, but I couldn't keep this secret anymore. Tears were starting to form in my eyes. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I hoped I was wrong. Because I know how much you love him. Because I know how devastated you would be. Lisa reached across the table and took my hands. I kept thinking maybe it was innocent, maybe there was an explanation. But the more I saw, the more obvious it became. I pulled my hands away and stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, the October evening was peaceful, with neighbors coming home from work and children playing in yards. Everything looked normal, but my world was collapsing. How long do you think it's been going on? I don't know. The way they acted together, it seemed comfortable, established. Not like a new relationship. I felt sick to my stomach. All those business trips. All those late meetings. All those times he said he was networking or entertaining clients. The pieces were starting to fit together in a way that made me want to scream. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I wish I didn't have to tell you this. I turned back to face her. No, you did the right thing. I needed to know. I can't believe I was so blind. You weren't blind. You were trusting your husband, which is what you're supposed to do in a marriage. This isn't your fault. I laughed bitterly. Isn't it? Maybe I was naive. Maybe I should have paid more attention to the late nights and the trips and the way he's been distant lately. What do you mean, distant? I sat back down at the table. Over the past few months, Mark has been different. Less affectionate, less interested in spending time together. When he's home, he's always on his phone or his laptop. He says it's work, but now. I trailed off, realizing how many signs I had ignored. Have you noticed anything else? Changes in his routine, new clothes, different cologne? I thought about it. Actually, yes. He's been dressing better lately, more expensive suits, new cologne. He said he wanted to make a better impression with clients, and I thought it was sweet that he was taking more pride in his appearance. Lisa squeezed my hand. Honey, what are you going to do? I stared at the kitchen table where Mark and I had eaten hundreds of meals together, where we had planned our future, where we had discussed having children someday. I don't know. I honestly don't know. We sat in silence for several minutes. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall and the sound of cars passing by outside. Normal sounds of a normal evening, but nothing felt normal anymore. When is Mark supposed to be home? Lisa asked. I looked at the clock. Any minute now. He texted from the airport about an hour ago. Do you want me to stay? Or would you rather handle this alone? I considered the options. Part of me wanted Lisa to stay for moral support, but another part of me knew this was a conversation I needed to have with my husband privately. I think I need to talk to him alone. But will you wait by your phone? In case I need you? Of course. I can be back here in 10 minutes if you need me. Lisa gathered her purse and jacket, then turned back to me. Sarah, whatever happens, remember that you deserve better than this. You deserve someone who loves you completely and honestly. After she left, I sat alone in my kitchen, trying to figure out what I was going to say when Mark walked through the door. How do you confront your husband about an affair? How do you ask the person you love most in the world if they've been betraying you? I heard Mark's car in the driveway at 7:30. My heart started pounding as I listened to him collecting his luggage, his footsteps on the front walkway, his key in the lock. Sarah? I'm home. His voice sounded cheerful, normal. Like nothing had changed. I'm in the kitchen, I called back, surprised that my voice sounded relatively steady. Mark appeared in the doorway with his travel bag and briefcase, smiling the same smile that had made me fall in love with him 5 years ago. He was dressed in a crisp business suit, and I caught a whiff of an unfamiliar cologne as he approached to kiss me. I turned my head so his kiss landed on my cheek instead of my lips. How was your trip? If he noticed my cool reception, he didn't show it. Productive. The Chicago territory is really opening up for us. I think we're going to see some significant growth in the next quarter. He set down his bags and loosened his tie. Something smells fantastic. Are you making the chicken marsala? Actually, Mark, I need to talk to you about something. Something in my tone must have alerted him because his expression became more serious. Everything okay? I gestured for him to sit down at the table. Lisa was here earlier. Oh good, did she bring pie? I've been craving her apple pie all week. Mark, she told me something that I need to discuss with you. I took a deep breath. She's been seeing you around town with another woman. The change in Mark's expression was immediate and telling. The color drained from his face, and his eyes darted away from mine. For just a moment, he looked panicked before composing himself. What are you talking about? What woman? A blonde woman. Lisa saw you coming out of the Hilton Hotel with her, holding hands and kissing. She saw you again at a cafe on 5th Street, acting like a couple. Mark was quiet for a long moment, and I could see him thinking, calculating his response. Sarah, I think Lisa might have misunderstood what she saw. You know how she can be sometimes, jumping to conclusions. So you're saying it wasn't you? I'm saying that whatever Lisa saw, she misinterpreted. Maybe I was with a female client, maybe it was a business dinner. You know how important client relationships are in my field. I studied my husband's face, looking for signs of honesty or deception. Mark, I need you to tell me the truth. Are you having an affair? He reached across the table and took my hands, looking directly into my eyes. Sarah, I love you. You're my wife, my partner, my best friend. I would never cheat on you. I think Lisa is mistaken about what she saw. I wanted to believe him. Every fiber of my being wanted to accept his denial and pretend this conversation had never happened. But something in his eyes, something in the way he had reacted to my question, told me that Lisa had been right. Mark, if you're lying to me, I'll find out eventually. Wouldn't it be better to tell me the truth now? I am telling you the truth. His voice was firm, but I noticed a slight tremor in his hands. We stared at each other across the kitchen table, and I realized that our marriage had just changed forever. Even if Mark was telling the truth, the trust between us had been damaged. I need some time to think, I said finally. Think about what? Sarah, you have to believe me. Your sister is wrong. Maybe she is. But I need to process this. I think you should sleep in the guest room tonight. Mark's face fell. Come on, don't let Lisa's paranoia come between us. Lisa is my sister. She loves me and wants to protect me. Or because she wants to cause trouble. Sarah, think about it, Lisa has never had a successful long-term relationship. Maybe she's jealous of what we have. I felt a flash of anger. Don't you dare try to make this about Lisa's personal life. I can't do this right now. I need space to think, and you need to sleep in the guest room. Mark tried to argue further, but I held firm. After he reluctantly gathered some clothes, I found myself alone in our bedroom, staring at the bed we had shared for 3 years. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I lay awake thinking about every business trip, every late night, every time Mark had been distant. I thought about the new cologne, the expensive clothes, the way he had been less interested in intimacy. The next morning, Mark left for work early, claiming he had meetings all day. After he left, I called in sick to the library and spent the day trying to decide what to do. Around noon, Lisa called to check on me. How did it go last night? He denied everything. He says you misunderstood what you saw. Sarah, I know what I saw. I'm not making this up. I believe you. But I don't know how to prove anything. What if I showed you where I saw them? That afternoon, I made a decision that would have seemed impossible. I drove to Mark's office building and parked across the street, waiting to see if he would leave with anyone. I felt like a stalker, sitting in my car watching the entrance to my husband's workplace. But after 2 hours, my persistence paid off. At 4:30, I saw Mark exit the building with a woman who matched Lisa's description exactly. She was blonde, professionally dressed, and beautiful. They walked to the parking garage together, talking and laughing. When they reached a silver BMW, Mark opened the passenger door for her, then kissed her cheek before she got in. She drove away, and Mark returned to the building. I sat in my car, shaking. Seeing them together made everything real. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Mark was involved with another woman, and from their body language, it had been going on for a while. I drove home in a daze. When Mark came home that evening, I was waiting for him in the living room with a suitcase packed. "What's this?" he asked, looking at the luggage. "I saw you today. With her. Outside your office building." Mark's face went through a series of emotions: surprise, panic, resignation. Finally, he sat down heavily. "Sarah, I can explain." "I don't want explanations. I want the truth. How long has this been going on?" Mark was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. 6 months. The words hit me like a physical blow. 6 months. Half a year of lies, half a year of betrayal, half a year of me being completely oblivious to the fact that my marriage was a fraud. "Who is she?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Her name is Rebecca Martinez. She works in hospital administration for one of our biggest client organizations." Mark's voice was hollow, as if confessing was draining the life out of him. "Do you love her?" Mark looked up at me with tears in his eyes, and I could see the answer before he spoke. "I think I do. I'm sorry, Sarah. I never meant for any of this to happen." I felt strangely calm, as if I were watching someone else's life implode. "So what happens now?" "I don't know. I love you too, Sarah. I'm confused about everything, and I hate myself for hurting you like this. You can't love both of us, Mark. Love doesn't work that way. I know. I've made a complete mess of everything. I know I've hurt you terribly, and there's no excuse for what I've done." I picked up my suitcase and stood to leave. "I'm going to stay with Lisa for a while. I need time and space to figure out what I want to do about our marriage. Please don't leave. We can work this out together. I'll end things with Rebecca immediately. We can go to counseling, we can start over. You had 6 months to end things with Rebecca. You had 6 months to work on our marriage. Instead, you chose to lie to me every single day." My voice was getting stronger as anger began to replace shock. Mark started crying openly now. "I know I've been a coward. I know I should have been honest with you from the beginning. Please give me another chance." I looked at my husband, this man I had loved completely, trusted absolutely, and felt nothing but sadness and disappointment. "I can't trust you anymore, Mark. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust you again. What about our marriage? What about all the plans we made? What about them? Were you thinking about our plans when you were with Rebecca? Were you thinking about our marriage when you were lying to me about where you were and what you were doing?" Mark had no answer for that. I drove to Lisa's apartment with my suitcase in the back seat and tears streaming down my face. When she opened the door and saw me standing there, she didn't say a word. She just pulled me into her arms and let me cry. "I'm so sorry," Lisa whispered as she held me. "I'm so sorry you had to go through this." "You were right," I sobbed into her shoulder. "About everything. I saw them together today, and then he confessed. 6 months, Lisa. He's been lying to me for 6 months." Lisa led me to her couch and wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. "Tell me everything." I recounted the entire evening, Mark's panicked expression when I confronted him, his weak denials, my decision to follow him, seeing him with Rebecca, and finally his confession. Lisa listened without interruption, occasionally squeezing my hand or passing me tissues. "What are you going to do?" she asked when I finished. "I don't know. Part of me wants to try to save our marriage, but how can I trust him again? How can I ever believe anything he tells me?" "You don't have to make any decisions tonight," Lisa said gently. "You can stay here as long as you need to. We'll figure this out together." Over the next few days, the full extent of Mark's betrayal became clear. He called and texted constantly, alternating between apologies and desperate pleas for forgiveness. He sent flowers to Lisa's apartment, left voicemails that grew increasingly frantic, and even showed up at the library where I worked to try to talk to me. "Sarah, please," he begged during one particularly painful phone call. "I made a terrible mistake, but it doesn't have to end our marriage. People work through infidelity all the time. We can go to counseling, we can rebuild the trust." "How?" I interrupted. "How am I supposed to trust you when you've been lying to my face for months? How am I supposed to believe that you won't do this again? Because I know what I've lost now. I know what's important. Rebecca was a mistake, a moment of weakness that spiraled out of control. You're my wife, my real life. I choose you." But his words felt hollow. If I was his choice, why had he been with Rebecca for 6 months? If our marriage was important to him, why had he risked it for an affair? Lisa helped me find a good divorce attorney, a woman named Patricia Chen who specialized in cases involving infidelity. Patricia was in her 50s, with silver hair and kind eyes that had clearly seen many women in my situation. "The first thing you need to understand," Patricia told me during our initial consultation, "is that you have options. You don't have to make any permanent decisions right now. But you should protect yourself financially while you figure out what you want to do." She helped me open my own bank account and transfer half of our savings into it. She also advised me to start documenting Mark's affair, gathering evidence that could be useful if we proceeded with a divorce. "I know this feels mercenary," Patricia said, "but if your marriage can't be saved, you want to be in the best possible position to rebuild your life." Mark was relentless in his pursuit of reconciliation. He sent me long emails detailing his regret and outlining plans for how we could repair our relationship. He researched marriage counselors and made appointments for us to attend together. He even wrote a letter to Lisa, apologizing for putting her in such a difficult position and thanking her for being honest with me. But every gesture felt calculated rather than genuine. I couldn't shake the feeling that Mark was sorry he got caught, not sorry for the affair itself. If Lisa hadn't seen him with Rebecca, how much longer would the deception have continued? 3 weeks after I moved in with Lisa, Mark showed up at her apartment unannounced. I was in the kitchen making dinner when the doorbell rang, and Lisa answered it to find my husband standing on the doorstep with a bouquet of roses and a desperate expression. "I need to talk to Sarah," he said without preamble. "She doesn't want to see you right now," Lisa replied firmly. "Please. I know you hate me, and I understand why, but I'm begging you to let me try to fix this." I appeared in the doorway behind Lisa. "It's okay," I told my sister. "I'll talk to him." We sat on Lisa's front porch while she discreetly retreated to the kitchen, though I knew she was staying close in case I needed support. "Sarah, I can't eat, I can't sleep, I can't think about anything except how badly I've screwed up," Mark began. "I ended things with Rebecca the night you confronted me. I haven't spoken to her since. I've been going to therapy, trying to understand why I made such terrible choices." "What does your therapist say?" I asked, genuinely curious. "That I was using the affair to avoid dealing with my own insecurities and fears about commitment. That I was sabotaging our marriage because I was scared of how much I loved you. The explanation sounded like therapy speak, designed to make his betrayal sound like a psychological issue rather than a conscious choice to deceive me. Mark, do you understand that it doesn't matter why you did it? What matters is that you did it, and you lied about it for months. I know. I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness, but I'm asking anyway. I'm willing to do whatever it takes: counseling, complete transparency, giving you access to my phone and email, anything you need to feel secure again. What about Rebecca? I asked. Do you miss her? Mark hesitated, and that moment of hesitation told me everything I needed to know. I missed the person I thought I was when I was with her, he said finally. But I know now that it was all an illusion. My real life is with you. After he left, I sat on Lisa's porch for a long time, thinking about his words. The person he thought he was with Rebecca, what did that mean? Had he been unhappy with the person he was with me? Had our marriage been constraining him in ways I didn't understand? What are you thinking? Lisa asked, joining me on the porch with 2 cups of tea. I'm thinking that maybe we were never as compatible as I thought we were. Maybe Mark needed something I couldn't give him, and maybe I need something he can't give me. What do you need? Honesty. Trust. A partner who chooses me every day, not just when the alternative falls apart. That night, I made my decision. I called Mark and told him I wanted to proceed with the divorce. Sarah, please don't do this, he pleaded. We can work through this. I know we can. I've thought about it for weeks, Mark. I've considered every option, every possibility. But I can't get past the fact that you made a choice every day for 6 months to betray me. That's not a mistake or a moment of weakness. That's a pattern of deception that I can't overlook. But I love you. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. If you loved me, you would have talked to me about whatever problems you were having with our marriage instead of running to another woman. The divorce proceedings took 6 months. Mark contested it initially, hoping to convince me to change my mind, but eventually accepted that I was serious about ending our marriage. Patricia negotiated a fair settlement that left me financially secure, and Mark kept the house we had shared. Lisa was my anchor throughout the entire process. She attended lawyer meetings with me, helped me apartment hunt, and listened patiently as I worked through my anger and grief. She never once said, "I told you so," or made me feel foolish for not seeing the signs earlier. You trusted your husband, she reminded me when I berated myself for being naive. That's what you're supposed to do in a marriage. The failure was his, not yours. Moving into my own apartment was both terrifying and liberating. It was a small 1-bedroom place near the university, close enough to the library that I could walk to work. After 3 years of living in Mark's house, surrounded by furniture and decor we had chosen together, having my own space felt like reclaiming my identity. I threw myself into finishing my master's degree, finding solace in literature and research. My thesis advisor, Dr. Rodriguez, noticed my increased focus and dedication. Whatever you're going through, she told me one afternoon, you're channeling it into excellent academic work. Your analysis of betrayal themes in modern fiction is particularly insightful. I had to laugh at the irony. My personal experience with betrayal was certainly informing my literary analysis in ways Dr. Rodriguez couldn't imagine. The divorce was finalized on a rainy Tuesday in April, almost exactly 1 year after Lisa had first told me about seeing Mark with Rebecca. I felt relieved rather than sad as I walked out of the courthouse. Patricia hugged me goodbye and told me she was proud of how I had handled such a difficult situation. You're going to be fine, she said. Better than fine. You're going to build a life that's authentically yours. That evening, Lisa took me out to dinner to celebrate. We went to a small Italian restaurant that had become our favorite spot during the long months of the divorce proceedings. "How do you feel?" she asked as we shared a bottle of wine. "Free," I said, surprising myself with the honesty of the answer. "Scared, but free." "Scared of what?" "Of starting over. Of trusting someone again. Of making the same mistakes." "You won't make the same mistakes," Lisa said confidently. "You know what to look for now. You know what questions to ask." She was right. The experience with Mark had taught me valuable lessons about red flags, about the importance of maintaining my own identity within a relationship, and about the difference between love and compatibility. I started dating again about a year after the divorce was finalized. It was terrifying at first. Every man I met was subject to intense scrutiny, and I found myself looking for signs of deception even in casual conversations. But gradually, I learned to trust my instincts again. I met David at a book club meeting at the library. He was a high school English teacher, recently divorced himself, with a quiet sense of humor and an obvious love for literature. Our first date was coffee and a discussion about whether Gatsby was a romantic hero or a cautionary tale about obsession. "Definitely cautionary," David said. "Love without honesty and genuine understanding is just elaborate self-deception." I knew then that he understood something important about relationships that Mark had never grasped. David and I took things slowly. He knew about my divorce and was patient with my need for transparency and communication. He didn't hide his phone, he included me in his social plans, and he talked openly about his own marriage failure and what he had learned from it. "My ex-wife told me I was emotionally unavailable," he shared during one of our early conversations. "She was right. I was so focused on being the perfect provider that I forgot to be a real partner." His willingness to examine his own flaws and take responsibility for his mistakes was refreshing after months of Mark's excuses and justifications. Lisa adored David from the moment she met him. "He looks at you like you're the most interesting person in the room," she observed after our first double date. "That's how someone should look at the person they love." 2 years after we started dating, David proposed during a weekend trip to the mountains. It wasn't elaborate or theatrical like Mark's proposal had been. Instead, it was simple and honest. He told me he wanted to build a life with me based on trust, communication, and genuine partnership. Our wedding was small and intimate, with just close friends and family. Lisa was my maid of honor again, and she cried through the entire ceremony. "I'm so happy you found someone who deserves you," she whispered as she hugged me after the vows. The difference between my marriage to David and my marriage to Mark was profound. Where Mark and I had fallen into comfortable routines that masked underlying problems, David and I actively worked to maintain our connection. We had weekly check-ins where we talked about how we were feeling about our relationship. We went to couples counseling not because we were having problems, but because we wanted to develop healthy communication skills. Most importantly, David encouraged my independence and supported my goals. When I decided to pursue a PhD in literature, he celebrated my acceptance into the program and took on extra household responsibilities to give me time to study. When I wanted to travel to Europe for research, he helped me plan the trip and cheered me on from home. "Your marriage should make you more yourself, not less," he told me once. "If being with someone requires you to hide parts of who you are, then they're not the right person for you." 3 years into our marriage, David and I had our first child, a daughter we named Elena. As I held her in the hospital, I thought about all the pain and heartbreak that had led me to this moment. If Mark hadn't betrayed me, if Lisa hadn't had the courage to tell me the truth, I never would have found David and never would have had Elena. "Do you ever regret what happened with Mark?" David asked me one night as we watched Elena sleep in her crib. "I regret the pain and the wasted time," I said. "But I don't regret that it ended." It led me to you and to this life we're building together. Mark reached out occasionally over the years, usually around holidays or significant dates. He had married Rebecca about 2 years after our divorce was finalized, and they had a child together. His messages were always polite but tinged with regret, as if he were still trying to convince himself that he had made the right choice. I never responded to these messages. That chapter of my life was closed, and I had no interest in reopening it. Sometimes I wondered if he was happy with Rebecca, if their relationship had survived the guilt of how it began, but mostly I didn't think about him at all. Lisa remained my closest confidant and dearest friend. She had been there for every major moment of my life: my divorce, my recovery, meeting David, our wedding, Elena's birth. She was the kind of sister who would always tell me the truth, even when it hurt, and I was grateful every day for her courage and honesty. "Do you think you would have eventually discovered Mark's affair on your own?" she asked me once, years later. "Maybe," I said. "But probably not for months or even years. You saved me from living a lie for who knows how long." "I was so scared to tell you," she admitted. "I knew it would hurt you terribly, and I was afraid you might blame me for destroying your marriage." "You didn't destroy my marriage," I assured her. "Mark did that. You just helped me see the truth." Looking back now, I realize that Lisa's decision to tell me about Mark's affair was one of the most loving things anyone has ever done for me. It would have been easier for her to stay silent, to avoid the drama and pain that came with the revelation. But she understood that real love sometimes means causing short-term hurt to prevent long-term damage. Family isn't just about sharing good times and celebrating successes. It's also about having people who will intervene when you're being hurt or when you're making destructive choices. Lisa fulfilled her role as my sister by protecting me from a situation that would have only gotten worse with time. I also learned that there's a difference between the love that feels comfortable and the love that feels right. My relationship with Mark had been comfortable in many ways. We shared a lifestyle, we had similar goals, we fit together socially. But it hadn't been built on a foundation of honesty and genuine understanding. With David, I had found a love that was both comfortable and right. We challenged each other to grow, we supported each other's dreams, and we faced problems together rather than running from them. The experience taught me that trust isn't something you can rebuild after it's been fundamentally broken. Mark's betrayal wasn't just about the affair itself, it was about the months of lies, the deliberate deception, the willingness to let me live in ignorance while he pursued his own desires. Some people might have chosen to work through the infidelity, to fight for their marriage despite the betrayal. I respect that choice, but I knew it wasn't right for me. I needed a partner I could trust completely, and Mark had proven that he wasn't that person. Today, when I see other women going through similar situations, I always encourage them to listen to the people who love them. Friends and family members who witness concerning behavior aren't usually trying to cause trouble, they're trying to protect someone they care about. The truth can be devastating, but it's always better than living a lie. I'm grateful that Lisa had the courage to shatter my illusions and help me see my marriage for what it really was. Her honesty gave me the chance to build a new life based on authentic love and genuine trust. Elena is now 5 years old, and she's the light of our lives. She has David's thoughtful nature and my love of books, and she adores her Aunt Lisa. Sometimes I watch her playing and think about the lessons I want to teach her about love and relationships. I want her to know that she deserves to be with someone who chooses her every day. I want her to understand that love without honesty isn't real love. Most importantly, I want her to know that she should never settle for being someone's second choice or secret shame. The truth my sister told me about my marriage was devastating in the moment, but it ultimately set me free to find real love with someone who deserves my trust. Sometimes the people who love us most are the ones who have to deliver the hardest truths, and I will always be grateful that Lisa had the courage to tell me what I needed to hear, even when it was the last thing I wanted to know. Mark's affair taught me that betrayal reveals character in ways that nothing else can. When faced with marital problems, he chose deception over communication, selfishness over commitment, and immediate gratification over long-term happiness. Those weren't momentary lapses in judgment, they were fundamental character flaws that would have continued to surface throughout our marriage. I learned to recognize the signs that I had missed before: the emotional distance, the changes in routine, the new clothes and cologne, the increased focus on appearance. But more importantly, I learned to trust my instincts when something felt wrong, rather than making excuses for behavior that didn't align with someone's words. The most valuable lesson from the entire experience was understanding the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. I eventually forgave Mark for the pain he caused me, not because he deserved it, but because carrying anger and resentment was hurting me more than it was hurting him. But forgiveness didn't mean I had to reconcile with him or give him another chance to hurt me. Lisa's courage in telling me the truth changed the entire trajectory of my life. Without her intervention, I might have spent years in a marriage built on lies, growing increasingly disconnected from my husband while he continued his double life. I might have had children with someone who wasn't capable of the kind of commitment and honesty that real partnership requires. Instead, I found David, a man who understands that love is a choice you make every day, not just a feeling you experience. We've built our marriage on a foundation of trust, communication, and mutual respect that makes me confident in our future together. The night that Lisa told me about Mark's affair was the worst and best night of my life. It destroyed my illusions but saved my future. It ended one chapter but began a better one. Sometimes the most important conversations are the ones we least want to have, and sometimes the people who love us most are the ones who have to break our hearts in order to save us. I will always be grateful for my sister's courage, for her willingness to tell me a painful truth that ultimately led me to genuine happiness. Family means protecting each other, even when that protection requires temporary pain. Lisa understood that real love sometimes means hurting someone in the short term to help them in the long term. Looking back, I can see that everything happened exactly as it needed to. Mark's betrayal, Lisa's revelation, the divorce, meeting David, all of it led me to where I am today, living an authentic life with someone who truly loves and respects me. The truth can be devastating, but it's always better than living a lie. I'm grateful that my sister had the courage to shatter my illusions and help me see my marriage for what it really was. Her honesty gave me the chance to build a new life based on authentic love and genuine trust, and for that, I will be forever thankful.